Now, if we use Iran as a warning to the Western world who's letting the Middle East flood its culture, we find that what's actually happening is more devastating than we realize to this regime, which has brought it on itself. The Islamic Republic's religious legitimacy is collapsing, and secularization is accelerating, especially among young Iranians. Why it's happening? Number one, why it's happening. Number one, religion got welded to a failing state. Islam got welded to a failing state, but it's more than that. The failing state was based on Islam, so it never got welded. And when a government brands itself as God's system and then delivers inflation, corruption, repression and privileges for insiders, people don't just hate the government. They start associating that failure with the religion it claims to represent. But see, the underlying issue is the religion, because the religion takes over the authoritative role within the leaders and within the politics. Reuters describes a deepening legitimacy crisis and broad rejection of Islam's established ideology in Iran. It's failed. The people have turned against it, and this is a foreshadow to how the West will end up if we're not careful. Number three, protest cycles broke the fear barrier. The 2022 Woman Life Freedom Uprising after Mahsa Amini's death was a turning point in how openly people rejected the regime's Islamic religious authority. Analysts describe it as the most severe upheaval the Islamist regime has faced, and recent unrest has spread even into clerical strongholds like Qom. Number four, generational and cultural shift. Iran is young, connected, even with censorship, and increasingly unwilling to live under 1979 era clerical rule. Research and commentary note declining conservatism and the diminishing status of clergy. Number five, the system's legitimacy rituals are failing. Low turnout and boycotts signal that many Iranians no longer buy the regime's claim to represent the people or God. Iran's 2024 parliamentary election saw record low participation, reported widely as a legitimacy problem. Point number six, data points with caveats show secularization. Garmin's large online surveys report significant religious diversity and substantial numbers identifying as less religious or non-religious than official narratives suggest. These surveys are influential, but methodologically debated online sampling accessed via VPN and social media, so treat them as directional, not divine scripture. Separately, Garn's 2024 political preferences support report suggests only about 1/5 prefer continuation of the Islamic Republic. That's political legitimacy, not theology, but it matters here because the regime's identity is Islamic and it's collapsing. So the real answer in one line, Islam isn't gone in Iran. The theocratic project is bleeding legitimacy because it turned religion into an enforcement tool for a corrupt, coercive state. So, what religious legitimacy means in Iran? For Islamic Republic, legitimacy is not just people tolerate the government, it's the regime's core claim that it has a religious right to rule, guardianship or of the jurist clerical authority, and that the public broadly accepts that claim as morally binding. So collapsing here means fewer people accept clerical rule as religiously legitimate, and the regime increasingly has to rely on coercion instead of consent. coercion instead of consent. And that's what a lot of Western governments are doing now. They're just pushing their views onto the civilians. So what evidence supports that without pretending we can read every Iranian mind? What evidence supports that? Number one, political participation is dropping, including in legitimacy elections. When a system treats elections as a public pledge of support, low turnout is a legitimacy signal. In 2024, Iran's parliamentary election turnout was reported at about 41% officially, widely framed as historically low and a warning sign for the Islamic regime's claim of popular backing. Khamenei himself acknowledged the low participation in June 2024 presidential election round was less than expected, with reports that over 60% did not vote in the first round. And that's not Islam disappeared, that's the system is getting the public buy-in it needs to look divinely endorsed. It isn't getting it. It's just not getting the public buy-in, so it doesn't look politically endorsed. Number two, large-scale survey data suggests weak support for the Islamic Republic as a system. Independent polling in Iran is hard. Still, one of the most cited databases in GARM, Netherlands-based online survey, which has real limitations. It's not perfect, but it's consistent with other legitimacy indicators. Well, GARM's 2024 political preferences report says 70% oppose continuation of the Islamic Republic and only about 20% support it. So, important caveat. This is only online sampling. Treat it as directional, not as a census. But when a survey shows lopsided opposition, it still matters as a sign of mood, especially alongside turnout collapse. Number three, mass non-compliance with mandatory religious law, hijab, is now widespread and persistent. The regime treats hijab enforcement as a religious pillar of the state. When large numbers openly defy it for years, that's a legitimacy wound. A UN-backed fact-finding mission reported Iran expanding surveillance and enforcement drones, facial recognition, reporting apps like Nazar to enforce hijab rules. See, this is extreme Islamic ideology used within a government, and this is what they do. Reporting in late 2025 describes women continuing to flout hijab laws in public despite harsher penalties and surveillance, suggesting the state is struggling to restore religious order through normal social consent. And if a religious state has to use drones and facial recognition to force piety, that's not piety, that's compliance under pressure. So number four, the regime increasingly argues like a besieged faction, not a confident moral authority. It argues like a besieged faction, not a confident moral authority. When clerics spend major sermons warning, threatening, and framing dissent as enemy warfare, it's often because the old "we are the moral guardians" story isn't landing. Recent reporting shows senior clerics using Friday prayers to push hardline messaging amid tensions, which fits a pattern of politicized religiosity rather than spiritual authority. So what this claim does not mean. It does not mean Islam has collapsed as a faith in Iran. Many Iranians remain Muslim, including devoutly so, but it does not mean the regime is guaranteed to fall soon. Authoritarian states can survive a long time on coercion, and it does mean the Islamic Republic's religious claim to rule is increasingly rejected or ignored, especially when measured through turnout, non-compliance, and opinion data. A clean, accurate way to say it for your content is Iran isn't becoming non-Muslim overnight. What's collapsing is the Islamic Republic's ability to present clerical rule as morally and religiously binding. More people are opting out through boycotts, open defiance, and rejection of the system's religious authority. So, the authoritarian power is the problem, and religion, one of the pillars it sometimes borrows because it's useful. Well, I think it's the main pillar that it uses, is useful. to them, but they've misappropriated it, and the people of Iran are saying not on. When you do that, you're treating commonly used as essential. They're not the same thing. Number one, Iran punishes dissent under religious rules. Hijab enforcement is a clear example of morality policying dressed up as a religious duty. So religion is definitely part of Iran's control toolkit. Number two, but the pillar that actually holds up repression is unaccountable coercive power. But it's unaccountable coercive power under the banner of Islamic ideology. That's why the same repression happens in systems that are not religious, but in this case it is religious. If religion were a necessary pillar, secular dictatorships wouldn't be able to run prisons, secret police, censorship and torture, but they do very easily in Iran. So religion cannot be the structural pillar of repression in general. It's an optional upgrade pack. Number three, what religion uniquely adds and why Iran uses it. Well, religion gives authoritarianism a special advantage, sacred immunity. Number one, oppose us becomes oppose God. Number two, criticism becomes blasphemy, and obedience becomes piety. That's exactly why the European Court of Human Rights has treated a regime based on Sharia as a political system, as incompatible with democratic principles under the convention in the Rafa Patisi case. Notice what the court is condemning: theocratic political rule, religion fused to state power, not Muslims existing. So, number four, Western culture versus Islamic ideology. If by Islamic ideology we mean Islamism, political program to make the state enforce religious law, then yes, that conflicts with liberal democratic norms. Courts and constitutions in the West are built to block it. So you can't have religious law mixed up in political programs. And Islam as a religion practiced by citizens, that's not inherently detrimental. Western legal systems already separate private belief from state law, and Muslims generally live under that without turning countries into Iran. Europe's Muslim population remains a minority even under projected growth scenarios, but it is rising, and it's rising fast. The non-democratic truth: theocracy, religion plus state coercion is dangerous. Religion itself isn't the universal pillar of repression. The universal pillar is unchecked power. But what about jihad and all of this? Well, jihad as in violent attacks, insurgency, terrorism, killing of civilians to advance Islam, is what's happened in Iran to try and save its political position. That's detrimental to Western society. And that's not a spicy take, it's just how words work. So there's two things going on here. Number one, Islam practiced by citizens does not equal warfare jihad. Most Muslims in Western countries are not running around trying to wage war, at least not overtly. Warfare jihad is a minority extremist interpretation, and in practice it is usually tied to the Salafi jihadist movements, ISIS, Al-Qaeda style, not ordinary religious life. So number two, if someone is promoting violent jihad, that's already covered by law. Western states criminalize: number one, supporting or advocating terrorism; number two, joining terrorist organizations; number three, financing terrorism; and number four, inciting violence. In Australia, for example, the criminal code includes offences around advocating terrorism, membership support, financing, etc. So warfare jihad isn't a protected religious practice. When it crosses into violence, it is treated as violent extremism. Number three, the real issue is distinguishing belief from violence or / incitement. belief. People can hold conservative or traditional views, even ones you dislike, and still live lawfully. Violence, incitement, the moment it attacks civilians, like join ISIS, bring Sharia by force, it's no longer religion, it's criminal extremism. And number 4, a sober summary, viewers. Warfare jihad is violence against civilians, harmful, legal, illegal, and a national security threat. Islam as a lived religion by citizens is not inherently a threat because the vast majority aren't extremists and the law targets the violent minority. So people love turning some extremists exist into every believer is the problem. It's emotionally satisfying and logically lazy. And that closes. Okay, so in closing, if my question is, if someone is promoting violent jihad, that's already covered by law. Not if the authorities are theocratic authoritarianism. So the Islamist laws don't fully protect these jihadists, even though they're supposed to, because they break out of it. If the authorities are theocratic authoritarians, then the law already covers it. Becomes a joke. People tell right before they get arrested for telling jokes. Now, because in a theocracy the state defines violence and extremism however it wants, today it's terrorism, tomorrow it's taking your scarf off, next week it's criticising the leader, and suddenly you're the extremist. The law isn't a shield, it's a weapon. Courts, police and prosecutors don't constrain power, they execute it. So violent jihad isn't the only danger. Even if the state bans freelance violence because it wants monopoly over force, it can still terrorise people through censorship, prisons, morality police, mass surveillance, and national security charges that mean you annoyed us. So yes, if the authorities become theocratic authoritarian, legal protections against violent ideology don't save you. Not because Islam magically dissolves law, but because authoritarianism dissolves law. The religious part just adds sacred, don't question us, sort of varnish. Where this matters for the West is the real point. Number 1, in liberal democracy, you fight extremism and violence through law plus due process plus accountability. Number 2, in a theocratic authoritarian state, law is whatever keeps the rules in power, and violence is either outsourced to loyalists or done directly by the state. That's why the actual line in the sand isn't how many Muslims live here. It's whether your society keeps independent courts, free press, real elections, and limits on executive power. Lose those and you don't need Islam to get Iran. You just need humans with unchecked power, which tragically are abundant and renewable. I'm out for that talk. I hope it helps. Bye for now.